welcome to today's meeting of the Audit Committee. I am Councillor Alan Alvey, Chairman of the committee, and I would now like to ask Democratic Services to read the housekeeping note.
Thank you, Chairman. Please note this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please use your microphone when speaking and remember to switch it off. Please switch any mobile devices to silent. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the room immediately and use the nearest fire exit. Do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point in the car park.
Thank you. Please would members introduce themselves during the meeting if I have not already done so. Right, apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Jackie England.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, can we please approve the minutes of the meeting of the 27th of June? Everyone happy with that? Okay, thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member have any interest to declare of an item on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you. There are no members of the public present, so we will move on to item 4, Housing Benefit Review Update, which is KPMG. Do you want to introduce this? Are KPMG here? Oh no.
KPMG are joining us virtually.
Right, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, morning, I'm Ryan Stevens, Service Manager for Revenues, Benefits and Customer Services. I'm introducing Dan Hayward from KPMG, who undertake our housing benefits subsidy claim form assurance checking each year before they submit that to the Department for Work and Pensions. So I'll hand over to Dan, who will provide an overview.
Where is he?
He's in the lobby. He's in the lobby. Have you accepted him, Lee?
I think, Ryan, you had better.
Chairman, I think the KPMG representative's in the waiting lobby at the moment, so hopefully Lee might be able to just admit him to the meeting. If we can just give it a second or two.
Well, I don't know how much longer. Have we got him?
Yes, he's there. Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. He's there.
Yes, Daniel, we can hear you in the room. Ryan's introduced, so we're ready for you to start. Thank you.
Right, fantastic, thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is a report relating to the housing benefit assurance process for 23-24. So just a reminder for committee members, this is a piece of a claim that the authority is required to submit each and every year regarding the amount of subsidy which is received from DWP off the back of the processing of obviously the various...
Daniel, can I just pause you just for a moment? You're not coming through very loud. Is there any chance you could be a little bit closer to your microphone, please? Thank you.
Is that any better?
If you start talking, it might pick you up and might become a bit louder. Thanks.
Okay, yes, so I was just saying, so this is the 23-24 housing benefits assurance report relating to the 23-24 housing benefits claim. The authority is required to submit the annual return to DWP at the end of each year, and then obviously we are required to then audit that claim, extrapolate any errors, and then report back to the DWP. So that claim and that submission has been completed for 23-24, and this slide pack just provides a brief overview of our findings in the year. So I will take most of the report as read, but I think the main thing to say is that throughout the testing for 23-24, we didn't find any errors that required us to undertake any further additional testing. We were required to do some testing off the back of the 22-23 results that require follow-up as per the DWP guidance, but there were no new issues arising in the year which would have required us to undertake any further testing. And I think that's a really positive position to be in. For context, we audit over 130 different local authorities undertaking this work, and New Forest is, I would say, in our top 1% of authorities in terms of the very, very low level of errors and additional work that's required. So I just wanted to provide a bit of context there before moving on to what our findings were. So if we could move on to the next slide, and then just the following slide as well, slide 4, please. So out of the testing, and just as a reminder, there was £27.4 million worth of subsidy that was claimed in the year. We only found overpayments relating to £72.35 across 2 of the cases that were sampled. We are required, due to the DWP methodology, to extrapolate that error across the whole population, which then resulted in a total estimated error of only £138. Now, that is an error that we're required to report to DWP, but going forward, the department has changed its methodology, so such an error for 24-25 and beyond would not be reported and would not be counted going forward, because it is a very, very small minimal error. So that is the only thing really that we found that had an impact on the authority in the year. The following slides, which is slide 5, if we just move on to our observations. So there was a misclassification that we found and an incorrectly coded claim. But as you will see, that because that doesn't result in any overpayments for the subsidy, none of those result in any errors to be reported or any changes to the subsidy report. And these are kind of things that we would tend to find across most local authorities, and particularly misclassification there. So they're noted there as an observation, but no further action is required. And then if we could just move on to slide 6, there's then also one observation around incorrect eligible rent, which results in an underpayment. So where there is an underpayment, because that doesn't affect the subsidy that you have claimed, it is not classified as an error for extrapolation purposes either. Then finally, on slide 7, that we talk about an amendment that was made to the claim, and this just relates to one property which was set up on the system as a 4-bedroom property but should have been 1 bedroom, and therefore that results in, as you can see there, what should have been a £931.32 as opposed to £2,753. So given the nature of the population and the error, Ryan and his team identified all relevant cases and ran a report to see if any other properties were affected, and we're happy to say that this was an isolated error. So again, no further action was required other than that amendment relating to one property. So that's the overview of the findings for the 23-24 claim. Again, just to provide a bit of wider context, so we're now moving on to 24-25, and the team are working on that, and will be shortly providing my team with the information that we need in order to do our testing. I think that puts the authority in a very, very good position. As of our last update call with DWP, and we regularly correspond with DWP, there are actually 109 authorities across the country that still had their 22-23 claim outstanding, and there were 190 authorities that had 23-24, so that's over 50%. So the fact that New Forest has not only completed 23-24, but is quite far ahead with 24-25, I think is a really good thing, and credit to the team with all the hard work that they have put in consistently over the last couple of years to get you into a really good position. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. I think, as we said, we heard you eventually, but I think we need to think about this remote presentation of the report. I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions. I have a question. Yes, go ahead, Caroline.
It's not so much a question as a statement of thanks, really, to the team. What a phenomenal job. I think that's incredible. So thank you to them. If someone could pass that on to people that aren't here. Yeah,
I'd second that. I'd just like to note, I think, that KPMG have been, while it's a very good report for us, it is a bit late. And I'm hoping that the next report, 24-25, will be on time. Other than that, I have nothing else to add. Has anyone got anything else they want to say? Ryan, do you want to say anything?
Nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think I would echo what Councillor Rackham said, that a very good effort on behalf of the team. One or two minor little, but I think in the scheme of things, that's only to be expected. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item 5, which is the internal audit progress report from Ernst & Young external audit progress report from Ernst & Young's. Simon is not here, so sent along a very able deputy. Would you like to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so very short introduction. Obviously, Simon unfortunately can't be here today. I think I've been here before and I've met most of you, but it was a short introduction. I'm Katie Lean. I was the external audit manager for 23-24 and for the planning stage of the 24-25 audit. For various resourcing reasons, I won't be the external audit manager for the execution phase of the audit, which is where we do our substantive testing. But I've brought along Romana, who will be very ably replacing me for the execution phase, and she is going to give the update on the report that you've got in front of you.
Okay. Thanks, Katie. Hello, everyone. So, yes, I'm Romana, and I'm going to be the manager for...
If you can try and speak up a little bit.
Yes, is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
So, yes, I'm going to be the manager for the 24-25 year-end audit, and I joined EY almost 7 years ago now, and I've been working in the government and public sector ever since. And my experience spans across not just local government, I've also worked in the health sector. Personally, I'm also a new mom. I just joined work 2 months ago, came back from maternity leave, but I'm really looking forward to dive right back into the world of audit and to look forward to working with this council. In terms of the report, we just wanted to present this report. There's not much to say at the moment because we haven't started our year-end visit yet, but we just wanted to give an update on any key observations we've had till date and any changes to our audit plan since we presented it back in April. So if I could turn your attention to page 17 of the pack, the agenda pack. In terms of the status of the audit, there hasn't been any change since our planning stage of the audit. The only change to our audit scope is the change in materiality. It's just standard practice that we do whenever we receive the financial reports for the year. So we've updated our materiality based on the latest consolidated results of the financial statements that were published in June. And as you can see, materiality hasn't changed much. It's just a slight change since what we reported in our audit plan. In terms of the control observations to date, we just wanted to point out the Council's failure to adjust the financial statements for IFRS 16. We have been touching base regularly with the finance team, and whilst we don't yet have a final figure for what the financial impact will be, we do think it's going to be material. So because it will have a material impact on the financial statements. We have asked management and we've agreed with management that the financial statements need to be republished and re-advertised for public inspection. Based on our latest conversations with the finance team, I think we're going to get a revised set of statements next week, and we are also starting our audit visit from next week and hoping to finish all of our audit work before Christmas. The other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the last paragraph on the same page. So that's where we're saying we have a duty to publish a draft version of the annual audit report. That's basically where we highlight all of our results from the audit and also from our value for money work. Now, as I said, like our audit visit will probably run up to Christmas, so we won't have a final version of the report, the annual auditor's report, to present in by the end of November, but we are still going to present a draft report, and we are planning to present the final report at the next audit committee meeting that's going to be held in January. I think, yeah, that's all I had to say from this report, and Katie and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. I'm just going to make one little comment and then I'll under the control observations to date on page 17, you know, you use rather emotive words where you say the council failed to adjust the statements. You know, all right, I think it's not happened yet, but failure suggests, you know, I think that's a rather strong word to use in this situation. Anyway, I'm going to throw it open. Anyone got any questions on this? Or yes, Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. It's about the very point, actually. I actually understand why you use that, not because it's an attack on the council, but if we have a procedure where you do this, this and this, and one of them doesn't work, then it is actually a bit of a failure. I'd just like to understand why we had that delay, Chairman. Okay,
thank you. I shall ask Paul or Alan, you want to answer that?
Thank you, Chair. You're quite right. It wasn't adhered to by the original deadline. It's a new piece, a new change to the statements and standards that need to be incorporated by the council. A lot of work has been ongoing, and we are not unusual in this across the country. So, whilst it's slightly disappointing, lots of work has been undertaken, and as mentioned, it will be in place before the audit next week. So, the team are addressing around 150 different instances where they have to adjust the accounts for based on this amendment.
Good. Yes, Councillor Sullivan.
It's more an observation. On 27, you say, impairing the statement of accounts, audited bodies are expected to, and then you telling them what to do, assign responsibilities to staff, ensure the senior management. Isn't that a bit like telling the chickens how to lay eggs?
Sorry, can I just check which page reference you're referring to?
Page 9, 27.
Yes, so this is something that we are now including in all of our kind of reporting, so you'll see it consistent at most local authorities. What we're very much setting out here is this is the requirements of both councils and audit firms in terms of what we are required to do. This is what drives the kind of, I don't want to say the scope of our audit work, but more around if we are required to do extra stuff because those elements haven't necessarily been met. So, for example, not including IFRS 16 adjustments would probably fall within that category because we'd obviously expect the set of accounts that should have been presented or published back in June when they were originally prepared to include IFRS 16. So that kind of falls within the to enable delivery to the plan type section. So it's very much standardised wording that we're just drawing out just to highlight to everyone the expectations that are set both on ourselves and of councils.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any Questions? No? Okay. I think we're asked to note this, so I can take it. It's noted, and we will move on. Thank you very much. We will move on now to item 6, Treasury Management. Hampshire County Council, Daniel O'Rourke, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, members. So this report covers the Treasury performance for the Council during the first half of 2025-26. One of the key reasons that we present this report is to demonstrate that we're operating within the boundaries of the Treasury management strategy and also the relevant legislation and accounting standards. And I'm pleased to say that all of the Treasury activity in the year continues to comply with both the strategy and the legislation and guidance. Very briefly on the external context, so I'm sure you'll all be aware that inflation has remained quite sticky over the period, and as such, interest rate expectations have been revised slightly by the market because of it. So our Treasury advisor, Arlene Close, is still of the view that we'll see one more bank rate cut by the Bank of England in this calendar year, and something that's actually gained more traction since the announcement of the better than expected September inflation figures last week. Table 2 on page 34 of the report pack shows the balance sheet summary and the forecast for the end of the financial year, and you'll note that the Council's net investment position at the end of March 2025 is now forecast to become a net borrowing position by the end of this financial year. Looking at the Treasury management position in Table 3, you can see that despite a decrease in investments of £9.8 million, net borrowing actually reduced by £3.2 million in the period, and this is owing to a repayment of £30 million of short-term borrowing. And on this short-term borrowing, so if you look to page 36 in Table 4, you'll see that that £13 million was of loans taken with other local authorities on a short-term basis, and this was done so to have sufficient cash over the year-end period, where historically we see that those balances decrease, so it was a short-term intention. Table 5 shows the breakdown of the investments that the Council held at the 30th of September, and you can see that a large portion of those balances are held in liquid assets now as that requirement for cash and liquidity grows. There are some short-term assets, such as UK Treasury bills that the Council holds, where there are small amounts of surplus cash, but these are still very much in the short end now in terms of that maturity. You'll see the benchmarking in Table 6 shows little change really from the end of June, just a slight drop off in the rate of return, which was expected given the changes to interest rates over the period that we've seen. The Council is broadly similar to the other local authorities in the exercise, just with a slightly higher exposure to bail-in risk, and that increase from June can be attributed to the maturity of some deposits with the Debt Management Office, or DMO, which weren't at risk of bail-in. It's worth saying that this increase in bail-in risk isn't really of concern, and as is noted in paragraph 5.8 in the report, money market funds, which is where the Council holds a lot of its investments, are deemed to be bail-in risk light owing to their diversification. And finally, moving to the compliance section, as mentioned at the start, the Council has been compliant with all of the prudential indicators in the period. So that was all I was planning to say, Chairman. Happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any? Councillor Sullivan?
At the beginning, you've got the HR settlement, which is 109. And then just further down on the thing, it says Public Works Loan Board is 119. So there's 10 million difference between the two. Is that to do with a loan that we've taken for Lymington?
No, nothing to do with Lymington, but that would have been to finance the HRA programme from 23-24, I believe, that £10 million loan.
So we took another 10 million to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have one. Sorry, Councillor Wade, you go first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about our interest rate exposure. Now, we fix a rate presumably at the beginning of the year, and over recent years we've come out with a very advantaged position afterwards, haven't we? Because we are somewhat consistently have had an improvement in interest rates. I'm trying to articulate this question the way I would get it. As we, year on year, seem to get a positive variance in what we suspect, are we being too conservative in our initial planning? Because it's not like it's a blip, it's a somewhat consistent pattern.
I don't know if you guys want to take this, if this is a budget question.
Yeah, I think I will just offer an observation, Chairman, if that's okay. I think we have to bear in mind we're constantly trying to forecast what the Bank of England is likely to do with interest rates. So, you know, there was a forecast there was going to be a reduction. It's not happened in quite the speed that we thought that original forecast when we sat in this room 12 months ago. So, again, we have to base our budget on what we think is a sensible and prudent estimate. That's what we do. Obviously, we have received additional interest earnings last financial year, along with the majority of other Hampshire authorities. Again, everybody's in the same boat as us, expected less, earned more. Again, this year, same boat, you know, we've expected a bit less. Again, we've exceeded our target. In terms of, we've seen obviously base rate come down, you know, a couple of times this year already. So again, there seems to be a trajectory down. So again, we've just got to reflect that and think sensibly about what we think a right and prudent level of forecast earnings is. And ultimately, that's what we look to base into our budget and our medium-term financial plan.
Thank you. I just had one question, which was on the table on, lost it now, on page, here we are, page 38 of our pack. It's table 5. We've moved money from money market funds into unsecured deposits. I mean, why have we done that?
So the reason for that, we hold a number of different investment options within the portfolio. So unsecured will include overnight deposit accounts with banks. It may be short-term certificates of deposit. The main reason is to try and include as much diversification in the portfolio as possible. All of the unsecured investments that we hold are done so on the basis of the counterparty list that we're provided by Arling Close. So it's approved counterparties. They're comfortable with the risk involved, even though it is unsecured investment. And as I say, it's well diversified. You know, we don't hold all of the council's balances in unsecured investments. It's just another string to the bow, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any questions? I'm just going to make an observation, which I think is more down to the council rather than to you, and that is on page 41, 315. And it's a statement: the council does not plan to make any further pooled fund investments. Can perhaps you explain why not? One of you. Paul?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take that one, Chairman. I think, as Daniel has explained, we have kind of gone from being very much an investing authority, and because of our aspirations through our capital programme delivery and our housing revenue account, acceleration of new homes, etc., you know, we have shifted into a borrowing authority. So the strategic pooled funds that we've invested, we've held actually for a number of years. Again, they were really a great investment when we were at a 0.25% base rate, but now we're earning similar interest position as well in terms of even money market funds compared to some of those strategic pooled funds. So it's the combination of the two, really. You know, there's not a lot of point in putting more money aside in longer term investments when we're likely to have a borrowing requirement, and the interest earnings are the same now, roughly, as we can earn in the shorter term markets. So it's the combination of those two answers.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add to Alan's point there, Chairman, and say one of the things that the discussions that we have with Alan and Paul and colleagues here, the pooled funds they're a lot more difficult to not so much get into, but to get out of. There is a lead-in time involved with exiting the pooled funds, which means that the flexibility that is there with some of the other investments that we have just doesn't exist with the pooled funds. So where, as we've alluded to, the council's moving to a net borrowing position, cash is more important to be held short term, having that long lead-in time with the pooled funds then adds to that risk effectively. And as I say, in conjunction with colleagues here, we don't feel that that's the right decision, primarily because the cash is needed on a short-term basis, but also in conjunction with the fact that it's the administrative burden on it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor O'Sullivan.
It's really to show my ignorance, really. You've got a graph 1 liability benchmark. Can you explain what I'm looking at?
I can, yes. So, sorry, let me just find. So the grey block at the bottom of the graph is the debt that the council holds currently. What you've then got, the blue line is the CFR, so that's the capital programme in effect. What the liability benchmark aims to show is what the minimum level of borrowing the council should hold in order to adequately fund the CFR. So what you're seeing at the beginning of the graph, you can see that the borrowing is actually exceeding the liability benchmark, which means that the council has got more borrowing to fund the CFR than what is technically required or what would be the minimum level. But as you move along the graph, you can see that that level of borrowing then dips below the liability benchmark, which then that gap suggests that there is a borrowing need in order to suitably fund the CFR.
And that's a guessometer to an extent, isn't it?
It is, yes. So one of the issues that we have with the liability benchmark is that ordinarily the capital programme will be for 4 or 5 years. The graph shows it over a much more extended period. So for instance, the fixed rate borrowing that exists is up to sort of 50 years in maturity. So that will extend across the whole graph. What this is or what the assumption built into the graph is that the capital programme will stop in 2028 and won't continue, which obviously isn't the case, but because the capital programme is only done on that rolling 5-year basis, you see this drop off after the 5 years.
And are you ignoring local government review?
That's a good question. I don't know whether, Alan, you want to jump in on this.
Yeah, I think to a degree, the timeline in terms of local government reorganisation sort of matches our capital programme timeline anyway. So I think, as Daniel says, we only really forecast a capital programme to the end of 28-29 because we only do really a 3 to 4 year programme. So LGR is almost a bit of an irrelevance in that. I don't think it would change our forecasting particularly.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No. Okay, well, we're asked to approve this report. Everyone happy? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, item 7, which is external quality assessment. This is external QA of our internal audit partnership. So, Anthony, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. This is first of 4 papers from ourselves today. As the Chairman explains, we're required to be audited ourselves as a minimum once every 5 years, and this will be the first time that we've been assessed against the new global internal audit standards that took effect from the 1st of April of this year in the public sector. So we've previously been assessed twice externally against the old standards. Now, really what this report does is takes you through all of the options that were available to us and our consideration in deciding which was going to be the most appropriate route to selecting the external assessor. So the options available to you are shown in paragraph 6, which is on agenda page 55. There's also an additional option, which is shown on paragraphs 20 to 21 on agenda page 57, where we can actually undertake that assessment through a sort of reciprocal peer review arrangement, which we discounted for the reasons outlined. Now, the approach that we've decided to take is on paragraphs 27 to 28, which is the self-assessment with independent validation. That's on agenda page 58 to 59. Essentially, what that means is we do the vast majority of the work, which we would have been doing anyway, because we need to self-assess ourselves every year. So essentially, first year of the standards, we've done that full self-assessment ourselves. We've collated all of that information, hundreds and hundreds of documents so far, sent it all over to the external assessors, and then they'll run through that along with the self-assessment to then come up with their independent validation. Is that self-assessment correct? We think it's the most cost-effective option given the complexity of the partnership with over 35 partners to take that approach. We're required to have also under the standards a quality assessment and improvement programme, so that's outlined for you in the appendix, and we're also going to be, as part of the assessment, be assessed against that. Within the the quality assessment and improvement programme, it also includes an action plan of some of the measures that we'd be looking to take to obviously continuously drive performance through for the next sort of year or so. Now, we're required to report this to you under the standards, but given the timing of the committees, it's kind of a little bit late now because obviously the assessment's sort of underway, but obviously we did sort of share the documents with the chairman about a month ago, just so we had the sort of information a little bit more timely. But probably not too much more to say, so I'll pause there, Chairman. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone got any questions on this? I think it's fairly straightforward. So I'm sorry, Malcolm, didn't see.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it's about the use of AI, actually. It's sort of in its informative period at the moment. Are we sure that that meets the strict criteria that we are going to adopt through this process by using an AI model? Because they can actually say what you want it to say rather than the objectiveness.
It's certainly an area of interest that we'll be closely looking at, but I think with all of these things we'll treat it with the healthy degree of scepticism at this stage that you need to do. Also with any use of AI, obviously there's many options out there, but the county council, we can only use the county council endorsed AI model, which means that any use of it, categorically none of that information then goes outside of the county council. So it's not like you could use an external product, then someone else comes along and then all of a sudden they could sort of see information about your sales. There's real sort of safeguards around it. So I think it's certainly an area that a lot of authorities are looking at for how it can be used to enhance things, but I think it's prudent small steps at this stage rather than it being go gung-ho and get caught short by it.
Yes, Councillor Grisell.
There's a whole raft of guidance available to the sort of county council staff on using it, but it's not a specific sort of training requirement that we have. We do have, different to AI as a lot of people say, but we do have some bespoke data analytics software which we use a lot more than AI itself. And we've got a dedicated team that's been trained specifically on the use of that software. So it's slightly different to AI, but we do have these huge sort of analytical tools that can analyse enormous data sets, which we're favouring at the moment in our use. And as I say, we've got a specialist team that's been trained in that software.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Anthony, so we just have to, I think, note this is what you're doing. So we move on to item 8, internal audit progress report. So, again, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is our first progress report through for you with regards to 25-26. Obviously, Jade's come along to a couple of committees and met yourselves, but given there's 4 papers today, I thought it was really a good opportune moment to hand over to Jade and let her speak, if I may.
All right, thank you. So today I'm introducing the internal audit progress report, which shows where we are after the first half of the year up to the 30th of September 2025. I will take it that the report is read, but we'll run through some key updates. So pages 78 and 79 of the agenda pack outline the purpose of the report. As per page 81 of the pack, there have been no impairments or limits on our independence so far this year. This page also leads into the rolling work programme, which gives details of all of the audits in the plan and the stages that they have reached. There has been some additional movement since the 30th of September. This includes 5 further audits which have been finalised with assurance levels that are reasonable or above. These are the Corporate Governance Framework Complaints Audit, Treasury Management, Council Tax, Cyber Security Training and Awareness, and Tenant Engagement. 5 further audits have been scoped and 2 further audits are now in field work. There are 4 audits included, which were included in the 2024-25 annual conclusion that are yet to be finalised. However, we remain in contact with the services on these and expect to progress them once the services are in a better position to provide updates on the direction of the service. As per page 85 of the agenda pack, there have been no changes to the plan at this stage. Page 86 of the pack outlines the position of the management actions, and it is worth noting that for 7 of the previous audit review areas, all actions have been completed and those no longer require any tracking. Pages 88 to 90 provide an outline of the overdue high priority actions. There are 2 audits in this section. In relation to the open spaces playground actions, the new policy is drafted and scheduled for EMT and panel consideration, so they are in progress. And in relation to the health and safety actions, the standard operating procedures are drafted and under consultation with the relevant officers, and then the action on training can follow that. So they are also all in progress. Annex 2 on page 91 gives an outline of the low and medium priority overdue actions, of which there are some actions where updates are still to be confirmed. Annex 3 on page 92 shows progress against the performance measures of the partnership in line with the new strategy, which is a following item on this agenda. And finally, I want to bring to your attention on page 80 that the Southern Internal Audit Partnership has seen a higher than average staff turnover this year. Although there would have been some slippage in the plan, contingency arrangements have been put in place and recruitment has progressed. This means that we are confident that the plan can be delivered to provide an annual conclusion at the end of the year. I think that's everything, so we are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Grisell.
Thank you. On page 83 it says IT firewall management monitoring delayed due to resource availability. That makes me very nervous. Am I not supposed to be nervous about that?
Yeah, so when that review was initially scoped, the guy that was going to be completing that work left us at very short notice. There's always a lag between these reviews coming in because of the timing of that review. It essentially hadn't then got started. It was effectively put on hold. We've since recruited 2 team members to that team, so we've got more IT resource now than we've had previously. But with all of these things, there's always a time lag between officers leaving and then new officers joining. With the IT team, it is obviously a small sort of specialist team, so recruitment to that area is very challenging. But we're pleased to say now that we have 5 fully qualified senior IT auditors, which I think is a resource that most people are highly envious of. So unfortunately, with all things with the staff member leaving, it does leave you a little bit exposed. But as I say, that has been recruited to now, and the team's got more resource available than I think we've ever had as a partnership previously. So those reviews will be progressed. I will note that with that review that was carried forward from last year from the 24-25 audit plan, together with 4 other IT reviews, it may well be that some sort of rationalisation on those IT reviews may be needed this year, just because obviously for yourselves, Kim and their team, to facilitate 5 audits in 6 months might be a bit of a challenge their side as well, but certainly we're really happy with the resources that we now have available for us on the IT team. Priorities in terms of when we think we're going to be doing those reviews for each organisation. Yeah, so obviously it's quite complex with 30 odd partners and literally thousands of pieces of work, but really on an individual organisation by organisation basis, we regularly discuss each time with the senior management team the timing of those reviews and whether or not, if there's specific reasons certain audits can't progress in a year and why. There may be other audits that become more important that we could choose to sort of bring into the plan, but again, we would always sort of discuss the relative timings for those reviews, both on a sort of regular rolling basis, but also when we come to scope each individual piece of work, we discuss individually for that piece of work if the timing's correct, for whatever reason. But it's a constant juggling act with thousands of parameters, so it's...
Thank you for that, Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a general question. I see you've got a programme, and you which ones you doing last year, which you're doing next year, etc. That's fine. When you identify an issue, and I'm just going to use one as an example, which was the partnership working with town and parish councils, because in future LGR, that's quite important, and you identify there's a weakness, although it's limited. When do you plan to go back and see how that's progressing? Because do you take it as a special issue instead of just leaving it to the next time it comes around in another 12 months or so forth? Because the idea of internal audit is to improve. It's to find out, get it better before we have an external audit to look at it. And I just don't, could you just explain to me how that bit works here? Because I have had some experience of this sort of thing many years ago. So what's the programme? Do you only go back immediately if it's really bad, like it's a no? But when it's a limited, and then again I use this one of the working with town and parish councils, do you go back, say, the next year on top of that, or do you leave it 12 months? How do you make sure that the council is dealing with it quicker rather than slower?
So as well as tracking the management actions from the audit, also as part of our risk-based planning that we would do each year, we would potentially consider whether any follow-up work is required at that stage. So it would be part of the discussions with the senior management team and the services around whether that was a priority over any other pieces of work that came up.
So just come back to that. So in the case of this working with town and parish councils, how did that pan out? Was that not a priority, or is a priority, or was that something you've been looked at in, say, 12 months?
If I can take that one in particular, obviously the issues were reported last year, so we're still in the progress of obtaining the management responses for what the council intends to do to address the situation. So until we know what those management responses are and the timescales that the management team intend to have completed those actions to address the issues identified, if we went back and looked at the issue now, I don't think we would find anything any different, because we're waiting to know what the council intends to do to address the issues. So I think the timescales with any follow-up review very much depends upon what action the council intends to take to address the issues and the timescales it intends to address the issues in before we can then go back and follow that up.
I was going to say perhaps we should address Alan Bassoon. Anyway, you ask your question. Go on.
No, I'm just going to ask, what's the general time frame for that aspect, or is it variable? For the council coming back with their plan, that's all.
Well, in the town and parish councils, the draft report was issued back in May. So it's out of our hands as to when the council comes back. It is regularly escalated and raised with the management team, but I think they probably need to explain for themselves what the delays are on those reviews.
I mean, just picking up on that, I think the question arises if you're saying it's now with the council and EMT presumably. Do you want to say anything on this, Alan?
I can't say anything necessarily specific, but all I can say is I think off the back of the conversation this morning, I can certainly go away and follow up where we have got these draft reviews that haven't yet been finalised and help support get them over the line with the relevant officers.
Thank you. Very good. Right, Councillor Rackham.
Thank you. So I know that we've talked about this before actually, but on page 86 in the analysis of the live audit reviews, we've got open spaces and playground safety checks are again limited in the assurance opinion, and because I remember this being talked about, that kind of worries me even more now, particularly with regard to playground safety checks. I don't know, how do we move that from being limited assurance to something a bit more positive? How can we do that?
So that was the assurance assessment at the time, which is obviously line in the sand, it doesn't change. That was the outcome of that review. That still shows as limited because there's still outstanding actions in relation to that review that are still to be taken forward. Again, as and when the actions have been completed and we would do a follow-up review or a full re-audit of that area, we would then come up with what our assessment is at that point in time.
I think, to be fair, Councillor Rackham, I mean, there is a report on page 88 which sets out the time frame for addressing, you know, the open spaces safety check.
Yeah, but we've had that before.
Well, then I think if rather than address to internal audit, we have to address it to the officers.
Okay, so what I'm after, I think, is the mechanism from what happens from internal.
Okay. Again, Alan Bassoon, would you like to just...
I'm happy to comment. So very much, I mean, Paul, to be fair, and Donna and my team are very much supportive of internal audit following up on these management actions. Now, we've really kind of put an impetus on that over the last 6 months or so, so that's why actually the number of outstanding actions, hopefully the committee will see, has significantly reduced over time. And as you say, Chairman, page 88, it does give the dates at which these updated policies are now going to go through due process in order to get adopted to finally clear these outstanding management actions. So I think it does demonstrate that there is an internal process led by or supported by officers working with internal audit. Ultimately, we have seen a lot of progress. There are still a few outstanding. There are dates in mind to get those cleared.
Right, thank you. Councillor Grisell.
Thank you. I feel sad, I'm not sad, that's the wrong word. I feel sorry for the fact that you are in this situation. Are you not able to put timeframes, like for the councils, for argument's sake, are you not able to ask and give a time frame that they have to come back and respond to you? Because it seems a bit woolly to me that, you know, you can just send out a question and nothing comes back for 6 months. I mean, it puts you in a difficult position apart from anything else.
Yeah, well, it's reflected in our performance measures with the time in between. Have we issued the draft reports on time and lived up to our side? Have reports been finalised in time? We can only have control over what we have control over, which is on our side. But obviously we work very closely with the management team. We do have escalation processes, but essentially I have no control over over any aspects that isn't within our remit. It's
weird. Thank you.
Okay, I have one question really to do with the IT section, auditing of IT. When you do this, do you actually look at the actual software, the software programs, if you like, that the IT department have brought in to see how suitable they are? I mean, I ask this because there was a report recently that the SharePoint software, which is a Microsoft software, Microsoft have admitted there's a major flaw in the software. I mean, does this come under your remit of auditing?
not directly.
Right.
So obviously, yeah, that's a completely different sort of specialism. Actually, you know, checking the validity of individual pieces of software. What we would look to do is, okay, you've got this suite of software. Are you applying patches regularly to mitigate the risk of cybersecurity issues? Are you, you know, backing up all of your data on a regular basis that if you were attacked, you can recover your information from those systems? Have you got appropriate sort of safeguards in place to stop unauthorised access to those systems, either from staff or maliciously externally? Do you have the right firewalls in place? All of these sort of security measures, we would look at that rather than it being a forensic review of the, you know, post office system that's obviously quite clearly been flawed from the start. That wouldn't be what we would do. That's a completely different specialty.
That's not really the point. I'm not but where a software manufacturer, whatever you call them, has said we have a problem with our software, does that then, do you ask our IT department, what are you doing about that, or do you just ignore that?
No, again, that's, you know, are you applying the patches? Are you applying the upgrades? Are you doing what you can to address those issues as soon as they are done? So we would obviously periodically do a patch management type audits. It's very crucial that, you know, if there are security vulnerabilities or flaws within your software that have been identified, that they are promptly applied, but also done in a safe manner. So if you apply your patches, then there is the way to roll back in case that's caused other issues with other services. There's a whole sort of lots of different facets to that we would periodically audit.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just looking at the stakeholder satisfaction to understand it really. Audit committee, I'm looking at the arrows at the end, the direction of travel. That's on page 92. Would you comment on that?
Sorry.
The audit committee, the direction of travel, you'll put, I'm trying to understand what it means exactly.
So these are, we've always had performance measures. We've now got far more performance measures. So we've always been able to complete the annual satisfaction survey, and so we have comparative data from previous periods. So our target is 90%. It was 100% this year. It was 100% the previous year, so there's no direction of travel. It's similar. With regards to the senior management feedback, then obviously we're above target, but it's slightly lower than it was last year, so obviously that one's gone down. But the key contacts has gone up compared to previous years. With all of the other measures where it was not applicable, where we didn't ask for that information, in that way we've got no comparator, which is why it's not applicable. What we will then have next year, because it's going to be our performance measures for the foreseeable future, is we'll have that comparative data where we can show the differences each year. But that's very much static one-off.
Just the senior management is, how do you explain the arrow zooming down and a red alert on that?
Well, as I say, last year the outcomes from the survey from the senior management were above 94%, so it's a downward trend from the comparison from last year, but we're still above target.
That seems too extreme, actually. You'd have thought it would be an amber, but
well,
this is all variation. This is the trouble with these colours, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're asked to note the progress report. Everybody happy? Move on. Okay, thank you. We come to item 9, internal audit charter. I'm just going to say, Anthony, before, well, you introduce it, if you would.
Certainly. So, obviously, the charter is approved by yourselves each year. The charter has been approved previously. Opportune has arisen to look at the charters and reassess, and we have made some minor amendments. In the covering report, the version I'd sent through had the track changes shown for ease of reference, but I think somewhere along the line those changes have been accepted. So it makes a little bit of a nonsense that I'm referring to the changes on agenda page 115 or page 17 of the document where those track changes were shown, but after that was sent through for dispatch, those changes have been accepted.
I was going to say, so how do we know?
I do have a version with me that shows all of those changes, so I can talk you through them line by line. It's how you would like to play it, Chairman.
Well, I suppose, I mean, without knowing what the changes are, it's difficult. I mean, you ask us, I think we're asked to review and approve the revisions, but without knowing what the revisions are, how do we approve them?
I don't know what happened in between sending through a version with the track changes on and those track changes getting accepted before the papers were published.
Are there any significant changes that you think we should be aware of?
No, it's absolutely not. It's really to differentiate previously. So, for example, in the charter that was originally approved back in March time for the executive management team, on the first line, it would be to input, review and approve the mandate, which was exactly the same for yourselves. That wasn't strictly correct. So now for EMT, it says input, review and note the mandate and charter, whereas for yourselves, it's unchanged because you still formally approve it. So it's just making those differentiations that for some of the areas, it's to differentiate that the senior management team agree, but it's yourselves who ultimately approve. And there were a couple of areas which weren't correct in both sides. So, for example, it previously said approve the annual conclusion. You just consider it. You don't approve it because it's my opinion. You can't really approve it. So it's very subtle changes. I'll be happy to show them to you after, Chairman, if it helps.
I shall ask the members of the committee if they're happy to approve the changes without knowing what they are. Anyone got any comments? Or do you want to bring it back to next meeting? Yes, Kate.
Bring it back to next meeting.
Chairman, logically, whilst we're sure this is an appropriate document, without knowing what the changes are, we can't, in all honesty, say we support the changes without knowing what we're supporting. Therefore, I would agree it needs to come back with a document annotating this is what it was, this is what it's going to be. That way it's clear and transparent for all of us, because this is a key issue, and an audit is so important. It's absolutely right on behalf of our residents, we get it right.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm sorry. Anthony, can you do that, please? Can you bring it back to the next meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll bring a revised charter for 25-26 to the January meeting, and then for your March meeting you'll get the charter for 26-27.
I can see
the version that you've agreed back in January for this year.
Chairman, just a suggestion, Chairman. I think Anthony's pointed out that the changes that have been made are so minor. We could take a slightly alternative view in terms of the recommendation and simply approve the internal charter that's been presented to the committee this morning. That's just an alternative recommendation, Chairman. So rather than you review and approve the revisions to, you could simply approve the internal audit charter that's been presented on the basis there are only a few minor amendments. But I'm just going to leave that with you, Chairman.
Councillor Rackham.
Do we have an option to delegate? So we vote on this and delegate it to officers to be okay with.
We can delegate it to me, I guess.
Or, or to you. Yeah.
I think the chairman could approve on behalf of the committee if the chairman's willing
What
to
do
do
people think about that? Is that fair enough? Okay. Yes, Councillor.
To take Alan's point, we could logically accept this document pending any review changes that we come when the changes are brought to the next meeting. So we accept it for now and then confirm that in the next meeting when we've seen the changes.
I think it would be, I would like to seek approval of this document subject to me seeing the revised thing with the highlighted changes.
Can I say both of this because you won't be here next time?
Well, I'll be here until January.
Yes.
So I'm going to get it before. I'm not going to wait till January for us to see it.
Thank you.
Yes, Anthony.
For my chairman, I've obviously got the previous committee papers where the original charter was presented. Obviously, you have the revised charter today, and I have a version with me that I'll happily meticulously go through with you that shows every single track change. And then if you're comfortable, they're minor revisions.
Okay, is everybody happy doing that? Okay, thank you very much. Right, we move on to item 10, internal audit strategy for 25 to 28. Anthony again.
So you'll be pleased it's the last time for myself this morning. Under the new standards, we're required to have a strategy and formally report it through to yourselves. We've always had strategies, but the difference being it was never a requirement that they were shared with each of the respective committees. What we can't have is, with so many partners, everyone having their own individual strategy that potentially competes and conflicts, and we're pulled in various directions. So how we've then approached it to make sure that we're taking everyone's views into account and developing the strategy was we undertook a consultation which is outlined for you in paragraphs 5, 6 and 7 on agenda pages 120 to 121, which essentially went out and surveyed all of our partners, both audit committees or equivalents and also senior management teams, gave them a range of 7 options that we then ranked in terms of their priority. The highest 3 priority actions have now been taken forward as what our strategic aims are going to be over the next 3 years. Now, it doesn't mean that the other areas won't be taken forward, it's just we won't be formally assessed against them. So I think there's still some really good areas in there. So when coming up with this strategy, it's come up with 3 strategic objectives with the underlying initiatives and individual actions that we hope to take over the next 3 years, which is included within the appendix. And our performance measures that we've just been talking through when we were looking at the progress report, some of those performance measures are now aligned to demonstrating the achievement of that strategy over the next 3 years. So I'll pause there and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Anthony. Has anyone got any questions here?
I think we note that this strategy covers a whole range of different, so it's not specifically for us. I don't think that necessarily causes us a problem.
In a way it is for you, because it's the service we provide to you, so it's our strategy on how we take our service forward.
Yeah, but it's not tailored.
It's not individual to you, no.
It's not an individual strategy, is it? No. Anyone, any questions? I think. Yes, Kent.
Chairman, and this is, as you said, this is your general approach. It's very wordy, and it sees a lot of positives in it. Where do you have improve in it? Because it's to prove and enhance. Because part of an internal audit is looking how we do something, and possibly how can the organisation do it better. And I'm just looking at it as a general question, because it's
But yeah, it's a well-established service. I think it's hopefully not fundamentally broken, so it is about improving and enhancing rather than addressing fundamental weaknesses that aren't there. But yeah, it's a lot about enhancement and just keeping up with technology, as we were talking about AI earlier. So it's having the strategies for how we can utilise those. So very much data analytics, AI, so we can look at whole populations. You know, Ryan was here earlier talking about the housing benefit stuff. If you can look at every transaction rather than a sample of 25, it gives far better assurance. So it's those areas that we're always looking to seek and improve.
Okay, anybody else? No, okay, we're just asked to review and note, so I take it we've done that. Thank you very much. Right, we come on to item 11, risk management process. Before we start, I'm just going to say, I mean, I asked for this to be brought to this meeting because I was not happy that the last risk management report addressed the problems that became apparent after the event, of course, with the new waste strategy. So I asked that this be put on the agenda. Who's going to... Paul, you're going to... Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, yeah, this report updates and reminds members of the Council's approach to risk management following the approval of the risk management policy back in February. As always, various levels of risk are prevalent across the Council services, and consequently, each service maintains its own service risk register, evaluating a range of risks against the likelihood of them occurring and the impact they would have. Mitigations are then formalised and implemented to minimise these risks. An example of a service risk register is included as an appendix. With over 30 service risk registers, some further supported by specific programme risks logs, it would be unworkable to share and present the hundreds of risk events to ENT and in turn the Audit Committee. This has led to the introduction of a principal risk register focusing on the key strategic risks to the Council. The most recent iteration being presented to the Committee at the June meeting and the next 6-monthly update due at the January meeting. All risk registers are live documents and constantly updated with new additions and amendments as required. Excuse me. And this committee is asked to note the approach taken by the Council to manage its risk and discuss whether sufficient assurance is being received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a number of points and questions. Does anybody else want to say anything? Okay, I mean, what, sorry, did I say? You've got, okay. I mean, I raised this because back in June, this appeared as a medium risk 8, and this was at the end of June. And then, after implementation onto phase 1, it became clear that there were a lot of problems that may have been identified within the organisation, but had not certainly come forward on the risk summary, the risk register. I think rather than going into detail, my concern is that there may be other risks that were on the principal risk register that again have not properly or fully encompassed the actual risks that there are. I see that on the detailed backup, there are risks now that are up to, I think it's up to 16. A risk rating of 16 compared to the one that was originally presented to this committee, which showed 8, a risk of 8. Now, I don't want to go into the details of all these risks because I don't think that's part of this committee, but I think when we get the update in January, that it would be good to see if there are any other risks below the main one that have a significant risk to them. And I'm suggesting a figure of 12, which to me is a significant risk if it's rated at 12. And I think the thing is that bothers me is if we identify a risk, it shouldn't just be a document that comes forward and has a risk on it. We should have a plan to deal with it if it occurs, if the worst happens. That's my concern. Right, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I fully agree with the comments you've made, by the way. I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to ask a technical question, only because I am a CPC holder from many, many years back, right? How do our O licence put an O licence in for not the right amount of vehicles? That's the bit, because it is fundamental to an operator of commercial vehicles that your operating centre has 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever. And its logic says, you always put a little bit of extra because you might have to buy some more. How did we get into that position that our own licence is no longer valid because the number of vehicles we're having? Because that is quite fundamental.
Thank you. Chris Noble, Assistant Director for Place Operations. So just to clarify, I guess that we've always been within the limits that we have set at our 3 operating centres. So we have 3 operating centres under our O licence, located at our 3 depots. As and when we've needed to apply to expand the fleet and reflect that in the operating licence that we have, we've done that ahead of time in advance, if that makes sense. So we've always been compliant in that regard, and we have, as we've gone through the service change, obviously had to increase the fleet, both as a planned increase that we always knew we would have to do, and then as we have had to bring in some additional resources to sort of shore up the service a bit, we've done another application to expand that further. So that's part of obviously the transport manager responsibilities within the council to make sure that we're operating correctly within the right restrictions that we have on us through the Transport Commissioner.
So we have to bring in more than we anticipated, over the limit and the extra.
Yes.
I mean, my point is that this risk strategy should be a tool to help management, so that and when I was working, if you identified your risks and you put a potential cost against them and have a plan as to how to deal with them. And I just feel that somewhere in this, at least in this waste management one, that was not done. We seem to be chasing after the problem. I mean, I've said this to people. There's an old army saying that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Now, in this case, it appears to me that perhaps the animals were the enemy. I don't know. But once we had that, we should have had a backup plan as to how to deal with it. And we didn't seem to. We then went out and started talking to the verderers and all the rest. You know, I think if you have a risk strategy and you identify the risks, you should then have a plan to deal with it. And I would say that I believe that I'm suggesting this committee is told if there are any risks at the lower level of 12 or more. You know, because we've got this update now of the waste strategy, and there's risks there, there's 16, which is almost a certainty. It's almost certainly going to happen if it's a 16 risk. And yet what came to this committee was an 8. You know, which is it was medium, it was rated yellow, it was medium. Sorry, Alan, you're going to want to come in.
I think so, Chairman. I think, you know, you're obviously raising some really valid points about the process by which we take an initial risk register, how that transpires into a summarised principal risk register. Obviously, there's a clear question on timing here. So yes, the June update was prior to any commencement of the rollout. Clearly, there were things that were raised during the rollout that weren't then seen as major risks at the point pre-rollout. So again, there's a question of timing in some of that. But I think for me, the main takeaway is let's go away and take stock of how we reflect on those service risks, how we reflect on those programme-based risks, and demonstrate and report them through the principal risk register. Happy to take that on board, happy to take that away, and hopefully you'll see some improvements when it's next brought to the committee in January.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone got any other points they wish to make? Okay, thank you very much. So we're asked to note the report, so we've noted it. Okay, item 12, future meeting dates. Next meeting is January, and we have a list of dates, I think, do we? Is that right, Lee? Is it included in the pack, the list of dates?
Yeah, Chairman, they're the meeting dates proposed for 26-27 meetings, so it's for members to agree.
Okay, is everybody happy? Those dates, thank you. And then there's a committee work plan which covers the next few meetings. Anyone, any comments? Any items to add or take away? Yes, Anthony.
Hopefully for the January meeting, there will be the outcome of the external quality assessment report to bring to the committee if we've had any time from the assessor. I think they're due to report back to us by the end of December, so it should be fine. But if it doesn't make January, it needs to be March.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, just a brief one. We obviously will bring forward the updated risk register for the January meeting, so we'll make sure that's added to the work programme.
It might be irrelevant or the wrong place to ask, but is there any way we could have a little bit of information about how you contact or what you contact the councils, the local councils for? What sort of information you're asking? So that we know what sort of questions you're asking, because we're councillors in parishes and towns. Or does everybody else know that and I'm the only one that doesn't?
I might need to just clarify what you mean. Perhaps we can do that as a conversation.
Okay,
Thanks.
fine, fair enough.
Right, okay, well, if there's nothing else, then I declare the meeting closed. If there's nothing else, then I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.